The invasion. The morning sky above New Tokyo burned orange as the alien ships descended like metal vultures. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from her command bunker as the Zephyrian fleet carved through Earth's atmosphere, their energy weapons turning entire city blocks into glass. The air filled with screams and the thunder of collapsing buildings. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the European defense grid," Lieutenant Morrison reported, his voice cracking. "The African stations went dark 10 minutes ago. We're down to 40% global coverage." Sarah's jaw tightened as she studied the tactical display. Red dots swarmed across the holographic Earth like a disease. Each dot represented a Zephyrian destroyer, each one capable of leveling a mountain. The alien armada numbered in the thousands. "How long until they reach our position?" she asked. 18 minutes, ma'am." Sarah closed her eyes briefly, thinking of her daughter Emma, who should be in school right now. Instead, Emma was probably huddled in some underground shelter, wondering if her mother would come home. The thought made Sarah's chest burn with rage. The Zephyrians had given humanity no warning, no ultimatum, no chance to surrender. They simply arrived and began killing. Their massive motherships hung in orbit like steel moons, while their smaller vessels rained death upon the surface. Cities that had stood for centuries were reduced to rubble in hours. "Admiral!" Sergeant Williams burst into the command center, his uniform torn and bloody. "The aliens are broadcasting something. You need to hear this." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a creature that would haunt Sarah's nightmares. The Zephyrian commander stood nearly 8 feet tall, its elongated skull crowned with bony ridges that pulsed with blue light. 4 arms emerged from its torso, each ending in claws that could shred steel. Its eyes were black voids that seemed to drink in light. "Humans of Earth," the creature spoke through a translator, its voice like grinding metal. "I am War Commander Thax of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your species has been designated for harvesting. Your planet's resources will fuel our expansion across the galaxy. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift." The transmission cut to scenes of destruction, London's Big Ben crumbling as alien beams sliced through it, the Statue of Liberty's head rolling into New York Harbor. Children running through the streets of Mumbai as buildings collapsed around them. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Around her, the command staff stared at the screens in horror. Some wept openly. Others shook with rage. The images showed humanity's greatest landmarks reduced to smoking ruins, their history erased in moments. "They think we're cattle," Sarah whispered. "They think they can just harvest us." The tactical display updated again. The red dots were moving faster now, converging on population centers worldwide. Beijing, São Paulo, Cairo, Sydney, all under attack. The death toll climbed by the millions with each passing hour. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Pentagon," Morrison announced. "It's General Harrison." The screen changed to show a grim-faced man in a bunker similar to theirs. General Marcus Harrison had been Sarah's mentor since her academy days, a soldier who'd fought in 3 wars and never lost his nerve. Now he looked older than his 60 years, his silver hair disheveled and his uniform stained with dust. "Sarah, how's your situation?" he asked without preamble. "We've got 18 minutes before they reach us, maybe less." She paused, watching her staff coordinate the evacuation of nearby civilians. "Marcus, tell me you have good news." Harrison's expression darkened. "The Joint Chiefs are discussing surrender terms." "What?" The word exploded from Sarah's lips. "After what we just saw. After what they're doing to innocent people. The military assets we've thrown at them haven't even scratched their paint, Sarah. Our best fighters can't touch their shields. Our missiles bounce off like raindrops. They have orbital superiority, numerical superiority, and technology we can't begin to match." Sarah watched the evacuation feeds on her secondary monitors. Families fleeing their homes with whatever they could carry. elderly people helped along by strangers. A little girl clutching a stuffed animal, crying for her parents who weren't coming back. So we just give up? Let them turn humanity into livestock? What choice do we have? Harrison's voice cracked slightly. Sarah, I've been fighting wars for 30 years. I know when we're beaten. No. Sarah's voice cut through the bunker like a blade. Every person in the command center turned to look at her. No, we don't give up. We don't surrender. We make them pay for every inch of ground, every life they take. Morrison cleared his throat nervously. Admiral, with respect, our conventional forces have been decimated. The 7th Fleet is gone. The Air Force has lost 70% of its aircraft. What exactly are we supposed to fight with? Sarah moved to the central console, her fingers dancing across the controls. The main screen switched to a classified file marked with the highest security clearances. Project Deep Strike. Harrison's eyes widened on the communication screen. Sarah, you can't be serious. That project was theoretical, untested. Desperate times, Marcus. Sarah pulled up the technical specifications. We've been developing jump-capable stealth ships for the past 5 years. Small, fast, designed to slip past enemy defenses and strike at their command structures. The prototypes failed their trials, Harrison protested. The jump drives are unstable. The cloaking systems drain too much power. Even if they worked, we only built 3 of them. 3 ships is 3 more than we have now, Sarah replied. And I'd rather die fighting than live as their slave. The bunker shook as the first Zephyrian ships entered the atmosphere above them. Dust rained from the ceiling as the lights flickered. In the distance, the rumble of collapsing buildings grew louder. Admiral, Specialist Rodriguez called out from her station, I'm reading massive energy signatures overhead. They're targeting government facilities across the region. Sarah watched the tactical display as red beams lanced down from the sky, turning military bases into craters. The aliens weren't just conquering Earth, they were systematically destroying humanity's ability to resist. Every weapons depot, every command center, every strategic asset was being eliminated with surgical precision. How long until they find us? She asked. Our bunker's shielded, but at this rate, maybe an hour before they dig us out, Rodriguez replied. Sarah made her decision. She turned to Morrison, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. Lieutenant, get me a direct line to Project Deep Strike's facility in Colorado. If those ships can fly, I want them prepped for immediate deployment. Yes, ma'am. As Morrison worked frantically at his console, Sarah watched more cities fall on the monitors. The aliens moved with mechanical efficiency, their energy weapons carving through Earth's defenses like hot knives through butter. Resistance was crushed before it could organize. Military units were vaporized before they could engage. But something stirred in Sarah's chest as she watched humanity's darkest hour unfold. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was something deeper, more primal. The Zephyrians had made a fundamental error in their calculations. They saw humans as weak, primitive creatures to be harvested like wheat. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The communication link to Colorado crackled to life. Admiral Chen, this is Dr. Elizabeth Kane at Deep Strike Command. We've been monitoring the situation. Doctor, I need to know the status of your prototypes. Can they fly? There was a pause, filled with the sound of explosions echoing through the Colorado facility. Admiral, I won't lie to you. The ships are experimental. The jump drives have a 30% chance of catastrophic failure. The cloaking systems will only work for short periods. And we've never tested them in actual combat conditions. That's not what I asked, Doctor. Can they fly? Another pause. Yes, Admiral. They can fly. Then get them ready. I'm sending you target coordinates. Sarah's fingers moved across the holographic interface, highlighting the massive Zephyrian motherships in orbit. Each one was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons and swarming with fighter craft. Taking them on would be suicide for any conventional force. But the deep strike ships weren't conventional. "Admiral," Dr. Kane's voice carried a note of disbelief. "You're targeting their command vessels? That's impossible. Their shields will stop anything we can throw at them." "Not from the inside, they won't," Sarah replied. "The ships can jump through their shields, can't they?" "Theoretically, yes. But Admiral, even if the jump drives work perfectly, even if our people can get inside those ships, what then? Each mothership probably has a crew of thousands. Our boarding teams would be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Sarah's smile was grim as she watched another city disappear in a flash of alien fire. "Doctor, you're thinking like a conventional military strategist. The Zephyrians made one critical mistake when they decided to harvest humanity." "What's that, Admiral?" "They picked a fight with a species that's been killing each other for 10,000 years. We know every dirty trick, every brutal tactic, every way to hurt an enemy that exists. And now we have a target that deserves everything we can give them." The bunker shook again, harder this time. Cracks appeared in the concrete walls as the alien bombardment intensified. Sarah could feel time running out, could sense the enemy tightening their noose around the last remnants of Earth's government. "How long to prep the ships?" she asked. 20 minutes for basic flight operations, 2 hours for full mission readiness." "You have 20 minutes. Load them with everything we have. Explosives, nuclear devices, biological weapons if necessary. These ships have one mission: cause maximum damage to the enemy command structure." "Admiral," Harrison's voice cut through the static from his own besieged bunker. "Even if this works, even if your people somehow succeed in damaging their motherships, there are still thousands of their destroyers in atmosphere. The ground invasion is already beginning." Sarah looked at the tactical display showing Zephyrian landing craft touching down across the globe. The real horror was about to begin. Not just bombardment from orbit, but boots on the ground, aliens hunting humans through the rubble of their civilization. "Then we'll make them regret every step they take on our soil," she said quietly. "Marcus, transmit the following message to every surviving military unit, every resistance cell, every human being who can still fight." She moved to the central podium, her voice carrying across every remaining communication channel on Earth. In bunkers and shelters around the globe, survivors huddled around radios and screens, desperate for hope in humanity's darkest hour. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. The enemy believes they have defeated us. They believe humanity will submit to harvest like animals. They are wrong." Her voice grew stronger, cutting through the static and chaos. "Every one of you listening to this has a choice. You can hide in your shelters and wait for them to find you. You can surrender and hope for mercy from creatures that have shown none. Or you can fight." Across the planet, in the ruins of cities and the depths of underground bunkers, humans straightened their shoulders and reached for weapons. Something ancient and fierce awakened in the human spirit, the same fire that had driven their ancestors to survive ice ages and plagues, to build civilizations from nothing and reach for the stars. We are not cattle. We are not resources to be harvested. We are human beings. And we have never surrendered to any enemy, no matter how powerful. Today will not be DC. The strike back. Captain Jake Morrison gripped the controls of the experimental ship Vengeance as it powered through the jump sequence. The vessel shuddered around him, its hull groaning under the stress of tearing a hole in space-time. Red warning lights bathed the cramped cockpit in hellish illumination, while alarms screamed their mechanical panic. "Jump drive at 90%, reported Lieutenant Ana Vasquez from her engineering station. "Hull stress approaching critical thresholds. We're pushing these systems way beyond their design limits." "Hold together, baby," Jake whispered to his ship. Through the viewport, he could see the other two deep strike vessels, Retribution and Defiance, maintaining formation as they prepared for the most dangerous mission in human history. Behind them, Earth burned. The massive Zephyrian mothership Eternal Harvest hung in the void like a metallic cancer, its hull stretching for dozens of kilometers in every direction. Point defense systems covered its surface like steel thorns, each one capable of vaporizing a human fighter before it could get within weapons range. Energy shields surrounded the vessel in a shimmering cocoon that had turned away every missile and beam Earth could throw at it. "Target acquired," announced Sergeant David Park from his weapons console. "Their command spire is dead center, just like the intelligence briefing suggested. If we can take out their nerve center, the whole fleet might lose coordination." Jake studied the tactical display showing the alien ship's interior layout. The information had cost thousands of lives to gather. Reconnaissance teams who'd died infiltrating crashed Zephyrian vessels, scientists who'd analyzed every scrap of alien technology they could find, intelligence officers who'd pieced together fragments of enemy communications. "Remember the plan," Jake said into his comm unit, addressing the other two ships. "We jump directly into their hangar bay, deploy our charges, and jump out before they can respond. Speed and surprise are our only advantages." "Copy that, Vengeance," replied Captain Maria Santos from Retribution. "My team's ready to paint the walls with alien blood." Captain Tommy Chen's voice crackled through from defiance. "Just point me at the biggest, ugliest target you can find. These bastards killed my whole family in the Seoul bombing." Jake understood that rage intimately. The Zephyrians had turned his hometown of Denver into a glass plain, vaporizing everyone he'd ever known in a matter of minutes. His wife, his parents, his childhood friends, all reduced to atoms by creatures who saw humans as nothing more than resources to be processed. "Jump in 3, 2, 1, mark!" Reality twisted around the three ships as their experimental jump drives tore holes in the fabric of space. For a terrifying moment, Jake felt like he was falling through an endless void filled with screaming colors and impossible geometries. The ship's hull rang like a bell as dimensional forces tried to tear it apart. Then they were through. The Vengeance materialized inside the Eternal Harvest's primary hangar bay, its cloaking field flickering to life just as Zephyrian sensors began detecting the intrusion. Around them, alien fighters hung in launching cradles like mechanical wasps in their nests. The bay stretched for kilometers in every direction, its walls covered with strange symbols that pulsed with bioluminescent light. "Holy shit," Anna whispered. "This place is huge. It's like being inside a city." Jake didn't waste time gawking. "Park, deploy the charges. Vasquez, how long can we maintain cloak?" "Maybe 5 minutes with the jump drive still spinning up for extraction," Anna replied, her fingers dancing across her console. "The power drain is enormous." Through the hangar's atmosphere, Jake could see dozens of Zephyrian technicians working on their fighters. The aliens moved with fluid grace despite their size, their 4 arms allowing them to manipulate multiple tools simultaneously. They hadn't noticed the human ships yet, but that wouldn't last long. "Charges deployed," Park reported. "Nuclear warheads with quantum detonators just like the briefing specified. Should punch right through their internal shields when they blow." "Retribution here." Santos's voice cut through the comm channel. "We've reached the command spire. Jesus Christ, you should see this place. They've got humans in cages, Jake, thousands of them." Jake's blood turned to ice. "Say again, Retribution." "It's a processing center. They're sorting people by age and health. The children—" Santos's voice broke slightly. "The children are in separate containment units. Whatever they're planning, it's not just extermination." The rage that had been simmering in Jake's chest since Earth fell suddenly blazed into a white-hot inferno. The aliens weren't just killing humans. They were studying them, categorizing them, preparing them for some fate worse than death. "Plant your charges and get out," he ordered, though every fiber of his being wanted to rush to those cages and start killing aliens. "We can't save them if we're dead." "Defiance here." Tommy's voice was tight with controlled fury. "I've reached their reactor complex. These things are using some kind of exotic matter for power generation. If I can destabilize it properly, this whole ship is going to light up like a star. Jake watched his tactical display as the three ships moved deeper into the alien vessel's vital systems. Each team was placing charges at carefully calculated positions designed to create a cascade of failures that would cripple or destroy the massive ship. "Movement in the hangar," Park announced. "Looks like they've spotted our heat signature through the cloak. We've got company incoming." Through the viewports, Jake could see Zephyrian warriors flowing into the hangar bay like a metallic tide. Each alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies encased in powered armor that gleamed with energy fields. They carried weapons that hummed with barely contained power, sweeping the bay in search of the intruders. "Anna, how much longer until we can jump?" 3 minutes. The drives need time to cool down from the initial translation. 3 minutes might as well be 3 hours. The Zephyrian search was becoming more systematic, their warriors moving in coordinated patterns that would inevitably locate the cloaked ships. Jake could see their eyes, black, emotionless voids that reflected no trace of mercy or compassion. "All teams, status report," he commanded. "Retribution charges set. We're moving to extraction point," Santos replied. "But Jake, there are too many civilians here. We can't just leave them." "Defiance charges armed and ready," Tommy announced. "Give me 30 more seconds and this reactor's going critical whether they want it to or not." Jake faced the hardest decision of his military career. The mission parameters were clear: plant the charges and extract immediately. Any delay risked not only their lives, but the entire operation. Yet thousands of human prisoners were trapped aboard this ship, people who would die when the charges detonated. Retribution. How many prisoners are we talking about? At least 10,000 in my sector alone. There could be more in other parts of the ship. 10,000 lives. Men, women, children who had survived the initial bombardment only to be captured and processed like livestock. Jake thought of his own daughter, who had been visiting her grandmother in Chicago when the attacks began. Was she in a cage somewhere on another ship, waiting for rescue that might never come? "New plan," he announced, his voice cutting through the comm channel like a blade. "Santos, start breaking those cages. Tommy, delay your reactor overload until we can get the prisoners out. We're not leaving anyone behind." "Jake, that's suicide," Anna protested. "Our cloak is failing and we're surrounded by hostiles. If we try to mount a rescue operation, we'll all die here." "Then we die here," Jake replied simply. "But we don't abandon our own people to these monsters." The first alien patrol was getting dangerously close to their position. Jake could see the creature's scanning equipment beginning to penetrate their fading cloak, the stealth field flickering like a dying light bulb. Soon they would be visible, and then the real fighting would begin. "All teams, prepare for combat operations," he ordered. "We're going loud." Jake's hands moved across his weapon controls, bringing the Vengeance's limited armament online. The ship hadn't been designed for prolonged combat. It was meant to strike fast and disappear. But sometimes circumstances forced soldiers to use whatever tools they had. "Cloak failure in 10 seconds, Anna announced. "Here they come," Park added, watching the alien search teams converge on their position. The stealth field collapsed with a shower of sparks, revealing the 3 human ships to their enemies. For a moment, the hangar bay fell silent as Zephyrian warriors stared at the impossible sight of human vessels inside their most secure facility. Then all hell broke loose. Energy beams lanced through the artificial atmosphere as the aliens opened fire. Jake threw the Vengeance into a spiraling dive between the massive support pillars that held up the hangar's ceiling, using the alien architecture for cover. Around him, the other 2 ships split off in different directions, their pilots relying on speed and maneuverability to survive. "Santos, how's that prisoner extraction coming?" Jake called out as he jinked around another energy blast. Working on it. These cage locks are more sophisticated than we thought. Give me 5 more minutes. Tommy, reactor status? I can trigger the overload anytime, but if I do it now, everyone in this section dies. Your call, Jake. Jake rolled the Vengeance through a gap between 2 alien fighters, their automated defense systems trying to track his impossible flight path. Human ships weren't supposed to be this agile, this unpredictable. The Zephyrians had built their tactics around fighting enemies who followed logical, systematic approaches to combat. They had never faced humans before. Park, target their command systems. If we can't escape, we make them pay for every second we're here. With pleasure, sir. The Vengeance's weapons opened up, sending streams of projectiles and energy beams into the alien control stations scattered throughout the hangar. Explosions bloomed across the bay as human firepower found its mark, turning sophisticated Zephyrian equipment into twisted metal. This is Santos. First wave of prisoners is free. They're weak but mobile. We need extraction to the nearest escape pods. Jake spun his ship around, laying down covering fire as streams of human prisoners began emerging from the alien holding areas. They moved slowly, clearly weakened by their captivity, but there was still fire in their eyes. Even after everything they had endured, they were ready to fight. Anna, can we modify our jump coordinates to take passengers? Not with our current power levels. The drives are already unstable. Adding extra mass could cause a dimensional cascade that would tear us apart. Jake cursed under his breath as more Zephyrian warriors poured into the hangar. The aliens were adapting quickly to human tactics, bringing in heavy weapons and coordinating their fire to box in the 3 ships. Soon they would be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. All teams converge on Santos's position. We're going to extract as many as we can carry and then blow this place to hell. The 3 ships formed up in a defensive triangle, their combined firepower creating a corridor through the alien forces. Below them, thousands of freed humans were streaming toward the escape pods, their faces filled with desperate hope. Incoming transmission, Park announced. It's from the Zephyrian command deck. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the same alien commander who had broadcast humanity's death sentence hours earlier, War Commander Thaxas. The declaration, 5 years later, General Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council, her human dress uniform a stark contrast to the alien assembly around her. The vast chamber stretched upward into darkness, its walls lined with viewing galleries where representatives from 100 different species observed the proceedings. Floating translation devices hummed softly as they converted her words into thousands of alien languages. She had traveled far from the burning ruins of Earth to reach this place. Behind her stood an honor guard of human soldiers, each one a veteran of the War of Liberation that had followed the initial Zephyrian invasion. Their battle-scarred armor told stories of desperate fights across a dozen star systems, of victories won through blood and determination against impossible odds. The council chamber fell silent as Sarah approached the central podium. In the galleries above, alien dignitaries leaned forward in their seats, curious to hear from the representatives of the species that had shattered the most powerful empire in known space. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. I am General Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Authority. I stand before you today not as a conqueror, but as a representative of humanity's right to exist among the stars. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many of these beings had never seen a human before, had only heard rumors of the strange bipedal creatures who had somehow destroyed the Zephyrian hegemony in less than 3 years of warfare. 5 years ago, the Zephyrians came to our world uninvited and unwelcome. They demanded our surrender, our resources, and our lives. They saw humanity as nothing more than livestock to be harvested, primitives to be enslaved or eliminated as convenient. Sarah's eyes found the Zephyrian delegation in one of the upper galleries. War Commander Thax sat in chains, its once proud form reduced to a broken shell. The creature that had ordered the bombardment of Earth now served as evidence of what happened to those who underestimated human resolve. They were wrong. The simple words carried across the chamber like a physical force. In the galleries, alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, remembering their own species' encounters with human forces over the past year. The Zephyrians believed that superior technology and numerical advantage guaranteed victory. They had conquered 47 species over the course of 3 millennia. Their fleets had never known defeat. Their empire stretched across half the galaxy. Sarah touched a control on the podium, and holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showing the current state of Zephyrian space. Where once a mighty empire had sprawled across thousands of star systems, now only scattered outposts remained. The rest had been either liberated by human forces or abandoned by fleeing Zephyrian survivors. Today, that empire exists only in the history books. A delegate from the Catherian Collective raised one of its 3 arms, speaking through its translator. General Chen, the Council acknowledges humanity's military prowess, but many here question whether your species can be trusted with the power you have claimed. The Zephyrian Empire, for all its faults, maintained order across vast regions of space. Now those regions are in chaos. Sarah nodded respectfully to the Catherian representative. Counselor Vex raises a valid concern. Yes, the fall of the hegemony created power vacuums across multiple sectors. Yes, some regions experienced temporary instability as liberated species rebuilt their societies. But I would ask the Council to consider the alternative. She gestured to another set of holograms, showing Zephyrian processing facilities that human forces had liberated during their campaign. Images of massive slave camps, genetic experimentation centers, and worse, filled the air around them. The Zephyrians didn't maintain order, they maintained oppression. They didn't preserve peace, they enforced submission through terror. The 47 species they conquered weren't defeated enemies, they were victims of systematic genocide and enslavement. In the galleries, several alien delegations began animated discussions among themselves. The Trilaxian ambassador stood, its crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. General Chen, while we appreciate humanity's intervention in Zephyrian space, many council members remain concerned about your species' aggressive expansion since the war's end. Human colonies have been established in over 300 systems previously claimed by other powers. Sarah had been expecting this question. It was the real reason the council had summoned her here, not to congratulate humanity on its victory, but to determine whether humans represented a new threat to galactic stability. Ambassador Crystal X, every one of those systems was either uninhabited or had been conquered by the Zephyrians. We have not claimed a single world that belonged to a free species. The colonies you mention are home to refugees, both human survivors from Earth and liberated slaves from dozens of species. She activated another hologram, this one showing the thriving colonial worlds that had sprouted throughout former Zephyrian space. Multi-species settlements, where humans worked alongside freed Catherian workers, Trilaxian engineers, and dozens of other formerly enslaved peoples. We're not building an empire, counselors. We're building a future where species like the Zephyrians can never again reduce entire civilizations to cattle. The Draconian representative, a massive reptilian creature whose species had warred with the Zephyrians for centuries without success, leaned forward in its seat. Impressive words, human. But words are not deeds. Your fleets patrol space that once knew no law save Zephyrian decree. Your weapons can shatter moons. Your soldiers have proven capable of defeating enemies that veteran civilizations feared to face. What prevents humanity from becoming the very threat you claim to oppose? It was the fundamental question that had brought her here, Sarah realized. The Galactic Council wasn't celebrating humanity's victory over the Zephyrians. They were trying to decide whether to declare war on humanity before it became too powerful to stop. Supreme General Korath asks what prevents us from becoming another Zephyrian empire, Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. The answer is simple. We remember what it felt like to be the victims. She stepped away from the podium, walking closer to the assembled delegates. Around her, the honor guard maintained their positions, but Sarah could see the tension in their stances. They were ready to fight their way out of this chamber if necessary. Every human alive today lived through the invasion of Earth. We watched our cities burn. We saw our families vaporized by alien weapons. We felt the helplessness of being outgunned, outnumbered, and abandoned by a universe that didn't care about our suffering. The chamber had fallen completely silent now. Even the translation devices had stopped their humming as every being present focused on Sarah's words. That experience changed us, shaped us in ways that can never be undone. When we liberated our first Zephyrian slave camp and saw the conditions those people had endured for decades, we didn't see conquered enemies. We saw ourselves. We saw what we could have become if we had surrendered, if we had given up hope. Sarah gestured to her honor guard, and one by one, they removed their helmets. The faces revealed were young and old, male and female, representing every ethnicity and background that humanity had to offer. But they all shared the same expression, the hard-earned wisdom of survivors who had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. These soldiers didn't fight to build an empire. They fought to ensure that no species would ever again face the choice between slavery and extinction. They bled on 100 different worlds not for conquest, but for liberation. A new voice spoke from the galleries, high-pitched and melodious, belonging to one of the rescued species. General Chen speaks truth. I am Ambassador Shiala of the Melodic Worlds, liberated from Zephyrian control 18 months ago. My people had been slaves for over 2 centuries. We had forgotten what freedom meant, what it felt like to make choices about our own destiny. The melodic ambassador's words were translated into a haunting song that filled the chamber with ethereal music. When the human fleets arrived, we thought we were witnessing a transfer of ownership from one master to another. We prepared ourselves for new forms of oppression, new methods of control. Sarah watched as more liberated species began standing in the galleries, each adding their voice to the growing testimony. Instead, the humans gave us something we had thought lost forever: hope. They didn't demand tribute or service. They asked only that we choose our own path forward, that we rebuild our societies according to our own values and desires. A Trilaxian engineer rose from its seat, its crystalline form chiming with each movement. My homeworld's population had been reduced to barely 1 million individuals, all of them forced laborers in Zephyrian manufacturing facilities. Today, we number nearly 50 million again. Our cities shine with light we thought forever extinguished. This was humanity's gift to us, not conquest, but renaissance. The testimonials continued for nearly an hour, species after species speaking of liberation, reconstruction, and hope restored. Sarah listened to each one, remembering the campaigns that had made these stories possible. The desperate assaults on fortified Zephyrian positions, the careful negotiations with traumatized survivors who didn't trust any authority figure, the patient work of rebuilding civilizations that had been ground down to nothing. Finally, War Commander Thax itself requested permission to speak. The fallen Zephyrian leader was escorted to a speaker's platform, its chains rattling with each step. The creature that had once commanded fleets capable of sterilizing planets now looked broken and aged beyond its years. Members of the council, Thack spoke through its translator, its voice carrying none of the arrogance that had once characterized Zephyrian communications. I speak not to defend my actions or my empire, but to warn you of a truth I learned too late. The chamber held its breath as the former conqueror continued. We studied humanity for months before our invasion. We analyzed their military capabilities, their technology, their political structures. In every category, we found them inferior to species we had previously conquered with ease. We calculated the invasion would require no more than 72 hours to complete. Thax's black eyes found Sarah in the crowd below. We failed to understand that humans do not fight for conquest or glory. They fight for each other. When we destroyed their cities, we did not break their will. We forged it into something harder than any metal. When we killed their families, we did not eliminate their motivation. We gave them a purpose that transcended their own survival. The alien commander's voice grew quieter, forcing the translation devices to amplify his words. We created an enemy unlike any the galaxy has ever known, not because they were stronger or more advanced than us, but because they were willing to sacrifice everything for the freedom of people they had never met, on worlds they had never seen. Thakak straightened to its full height, despite the weight of its chains. Honored counselors, I have commanded fleets that laid waste to star systems. I have witnessed the fall of empires and the rise of new powers, but I have never encountered a species like humanity. They do not seek to rule the galaxy. They seek to ensure that no one else can rule it through fear and oppression. The former hegemony leader looked directly at Sarah. General Chen, I formally surrender any remaining claim to the territories liberated by human forces. My people will abide by whatever judgment this council renders regarding our war crimes. We ask only for the chance to learn from humanity's example, to discover what we might have been if we had chosen cooperation over conquest. Sarah nodded respectfully to her former enemy. In the years since the war's end, she had come to understand that the Zephyrians themselves had been trapped by their empire's legacy, raised from birth to see conquest as the only path to security. Breaking that cycle would take generations, but it was possible. She returned to the podium as the chamber buzzed with conversation. Alien delegates huddled in urgent discussions, weighing everything they had heard against their own fears and ambitions. Honored counselors, Sarah began, her voice cutting through the noise. I did not come here today to threaten anyone or to demand territory or tribute. I came to make humanity's position clear to the galaxy. The conversation stopped as every being in the chamber focused on her words. We will not repeat the mistakes of the Zephyrian Empire. We will not impose our will on free species or claim dominion over worlds that do not welcome us. But neither will we stand idle while others attempt to build new empires on the bones of the innocent. Sarah's voice grew stronger, carrying the authority of someone who had stared down extinction and emerged victorious. The age of galactic empires is over. The era of species enslaving other species for their resources or labor ends now. Humanity will use whatever force is necessary to ensure that no civilization ever again faces the choice between slavery and death. She gestured to the holographic displays, showing human fleets stationed throughout former Zephyrian space. Our ships will patrol these systems not as conquerors, but as guardians. Our colonies will welcome any species seeking freedom and opportunity. Our technology will be shared with those who commit to using it for protection, rather than oppression. The draconian general rose from its seat, its massive form imposing even at this distance. And if the Council disagrees with your self-appointed role as galactic police force, if we decide that humanity itself has become a threat to interspecies stability? Sarah met the alien's gaze without flinching. Around her, the honor guard's hands moved closer to their weapons, ready to defend their commander against any threat. Then you'll discover what the Zephyrians learned too late, Supreme General. Humanity doesn't start fights, but we always finish them. The chamber erupted in voices as delegates shouted questions and demands. Some called for immediate military action against human space. Others argued for negotiation and accommodation. A few species that had suffered under various forms of oppression began demanding human protection from their own regional powers. Through the chaos, Sarah's voice cut like a blade. But I prefer to believe that won't be necessary. The galaxy is large enough for all of us to thrive in freedom. Humanity offers partnership, not conquest. We extend our hand in friendship to any species willing to reject the old ways of empire and embrace a future where strength is used to protect the weak, rather than exploit them. As the arguments raged around her, Sarah thought of Earth, slowly rebuilding in the ashes of the Zephyrian bombardment. She thought of the colonies spreading across liberated space, where former slaves worked alongside their human rescuers to build something better than what had come before. Most of all, she thought of the promise she had made in that bunker 5 years ago, that humanity would never surrender to any enemy, no matter how powerful. Today, standing before the assembled powers of the galaxy, that promise had evolved into something larger. Humanity would not just defend itself, it would defend anyone who could not defend themselves. The age of empires was over. The age of liberation had begun. Stared at Jake through the screen, its black eyes reflecting a cold intelligence that spoke of civilizations conquered and species enslaved. "Human vessel," the creature spoke through its translator. "You have impressed us with your tenacity. Surrender now, and we will grant you the honor of serving our empire as military slaves. Continue to resist, and we will ensure your species suffers for generations before extinction." Jake smiled, the expression holding no warmth whatsoever. "I've got a counteroffer for you, you four-armed piece of shit. Go to hell and take your empire with you." He cut the transmission and opened fire on the command spire. Ferent. The transmission ended, but its effect rippled across Earth like a shockwave. In the darkness of humanity's defeat, Admiral Sarah Chen had lit a flame that would burn across the galaxy.